This is Senran Kagura Peach Beach Splash. It is hyped by certain corners of the internet as being one of the niche Japanese games that will save us from the greed and anti-consumer practices of AAA gaming. This is the £265 of Day 1 DLC that the game launched with. The Japanese games industry will not save us from corporate greed or anti-consumer practices. I could go on with the examples, such as Nier Automata having DRM, games like Xenoblade and Fire Emblem being censored, and pretty much everything to do with Metal Gear Survive, but I guess anyone who needs those examples has already turned off the video and discussed. To put it simply, there's no shortage of anti-consumer bullshit and corporate greed in the land of the rising sun. And no, Monster Hunter World doesn't absolve the other Japanese games of blame. If it does, then Doom 4 does the same for their Western counterparts. Another claim I frequently see in comment sections is this idea that gaming needs another crash like the one in 1983 to wipe the slate clean. There are many problems with this, including the fact that the video game's crash of '83 was a largely American phenomenon. Even there, it wasn't some nuclear apocalypse where no games existed like people claim. Those that lived through it say that they didn't really notice it happening at the time, and that's likely because the crash was mostly on the business side of things. Games were still coming out, including classics like Elite and Tetris. In the UK, it was a boom period for home computers and bedroom programmers. Hell, it could be argued that the second American games crash might have already happened. The huge drop in sales for games like Call of Duty and Star Wars Battlefront 2 seem to be evidence of that. You can't even claim that it's not a crash due to there still being games that are good or popular, because as mentioned, the crash of '83 had plenty of profitable and popular games. The problem with saying there's a crash happening now is that any downturn in sales can be pointed to as evidence of a crash. A crash normally isn't apparent as such until after the fact. In a sense, this demand for a crash is nothing new. It's something I've been hearing from Nintendo fanboys for years, that a crash would reset the games industry, usually with the implication that Nintendo would swoop in and save the day and reign for 1,000 years. Likewise, the belief that once whatever group or trend you don't like has been wiped away, indies and Japanese niche games will rise up and reign for 1,000 years is just as naive. The logic is as flawed now as it was then. Even if it did work, how would you stop the casuals, the normies, the SJWs, the greedy businessmen, or whoever else from coming right back into your new utopian games industry? I see the appeal of wanting it to happen, but as already demonstrated, the Japanese aren't your friends, willing to sell you save slots and hundreds of pounds of Day 1 DLC if they think they can get away with it. After all, it's the niche fandoms that will pay £500 for a Figma doll, so of course they're going to try and wring as much money out of them as possible. Likewise, a gaming crash isn't some kind of magical reset button for the games industry that will wipe away whatever you perceive as the problem. Thanks for watching. Bye!